Welcome into episode 5 of Ramie and Drew. I am Ramie Mackloff. That's Drew Flaggy. Just a couple of Milwaukee comedians talking about sports and a bunch of other bullshit. And yesterday in episode 4, Drew, we reacted to the firing of Adrian Griffin by the Milwaukee Bucks. And joining us now to talk about that and maybe mix in a little bit of Packers as well. You know him. You love him. I know I do from all my years as his co-host on 1250 AM The Fan on the Wendy's Big Show. Now you can catch him on the Green and Growing podcast and the Curd and Long podcast. It's my pleasure to welcome in Steve Sparky Fifer. Spark Dog, how are you this evening, my friend?
It's all lies, and I'm offended. You've always claimed you love me. You've always claimed I'm your boy. All the stuff that's went on with you and me. We've been through some times together.
Yeah, we have.
It took Adrian Griffin getting fired for me to get on your damn podcast. This is episode 5. But you're my boy, Spark. Love ya, man.
It's episode 5. How many episodes?
No,
that's pretty early on in the run, bro. That's 5 episodes into the run. What are you talking about?
You love Bart Winkler. I believe he was on episode 1.
Oh, right. You listened.
I saw it on Twitter.
Bart.
But either way, I mean, come on.
But that was the bullshit episode because Bart said that Adrian Griffin would never get fired, and we were like, "Whoa, don't say never." And he said,
"No,
we didn't sign off on that Bart Winklerverse nonsense. We never."
And now here we are. You see, and honestly, you're lucky we got our footing. You know what I mean? Bart was the test run. Bart was the pilot episode. You're here when this. Look, I got stuff on the wall, man. I got a ring light. You know, look at I got a microphone in my like. You're getting the best version of us yet. You know what I mean? It only gets better from here, but it's the best version of us yet. You're welcome, actually, for waiting till episode 5 to get you on the show.
Sure, we'll spin it that way. All right, so let's talk about Adrian Griffin getting canned by the Milwaukee Bucks briefly. So I recorded the Green and Growing podcast, which you can also download on your Odyssey app, or download your favorite podcast at. And Nathan Marzian and myself talked about this. I don't know if you read the Athletic piece. You should if you didn't. That man was essentially fired the day that Doc Rivers officially signed on to be consultant. When he was told you are meeting your new consultant, quote unquote, Doc Rivers, he was fired that day. His career was over in Milwaukee that day. Because you're not going to convince me that this dude in this front office didn't have a conversation of, guys, look, we'll bring Doc in. We'll tell him it's a consultant, whatever. We'll see how it goes. And if it doesn't go well, wink, wink, then Doc will have month, whatever, to go over our tape, watch our games, give himself an idea of what works, what doesn't work, what he would do differently, and all this fun stuff. And then when it's time, when he hits his next rough patch, and he will, then out he goes. We'll get Doc in here, and away we go. And we won't miss a beat because we're going to bring in a guy that knows everything about the organization, everything about the team, strengths and weaknesses of different guys, how he would use them, and out to the races we go. I think it was a setup. I feel bad for Adrian Griffin. I understand why they did it. I get it. But I don't know, man. It seems sneaky as all hell to me. You hired a guy in Adrian Griffin who you never trusted. You didn't trust him. No. Because you told him, here's Terry Stotts, and he will be on your staff. Oh, you two have never met? Figure it out. Then that blows up before training camp. He walks out, and then you go, well, I don't know if I need to hire anybody, whatever. Then we get to December, and you go, oh, here's a consultant, wink, wink, Doc Rivers. He's going to help you in your first year as head coach. Ramie Mackloff, in all of your years covering crappy Chicago teams, have you ever heard of a consultant for a first-year head coach midway through the season? Never in my time have I ever heard of a consultant being brought in mid-season to help a first-year head coach figure out how to do his job.
No, I haven't heard of that. And certainly not a guy who is on like head coaching lists. You know what I mean? Like a guy who is obviously out there in the hiring pool being brought in as a consultant, a guy with a long track record and a championship ring to show, being brought in as a consultant mid-season. This would be like, I don't know. I'm having a hard time coming up with if let's say Bill Belichick doesn't get hired this offseason. And then one of the new coaches that does get hired 4 games into the year, they're like, hey, we're going to bring in Bill Belichick as a consultant because, we got some kinks to work out here, and we think he could help us work out those. I'm looking over my shoulder if I'm that coach and Bill Belichick is in the building. You know what I mean? And Sparky, I don't disagree with you. You called it a setup. I call it a contingency plan. I call it a parachute to get out of what you think might be a plane falling out of the sky. And if that's the case, like
Ramie,
and I said this to Drew
Ramie,
yesterday.
This is the same organization, Ramie. This is the same organization. And you remember, because we were at 1250 when we still had shows. And there's Larry Drew, and there's Jabari Parker, and there's John Hammond. And they're doing their little presser introducing Jabari Parker. And what was happening behind the scenes in New York? Jason, we really want you to be our head coach. Let's finish this on the dotted line. And there's poor Jabari being introduced with a guy who's not even going to be his head coach within what? Was it a week? A few days after that? They were signing making a deal to trade for Jason Kidd to get that done while they had their under contract head coach doing a press conference with Jabari Parker. Same guys, same organization. Mark Lazzary's not involved anymore. Fine, because this seems like a Lazary move. So maybe he's not involved. But it's that same type of deal, man. That hocus pocus stuff. If I was Adrian Griffin, I'd be hot. I'd be hot, and you stuck me with Terry Stotts and didn't trust me to hire my own damn head coach. And then you got the gall to essentially talk down to me, look down on me, and make me deal with Doc Rivers, who's got a TV job at this point, going forward. Again, and this is something else that brought up on Green and Growing. So who has John Horseman talking to about who they want at the trade deadline? Has he been asking Doc who he wants at the trade deadline? Or has he been asking Adrian Griffin who he wants at the trade deadline? Think about that for a second.
And I don't disagree with you, Sparky. My point is, and I think Drew agreed with me, even if it feels slimy and even if it seems unfair, and both of those things are fair to say, and I might even say that myself, I still, in a weird way, kind of respect the move and think that it was a smart move and a good way to go to bring in a guy like Doc Rivers in case things don't go well, that if you have to make a change at head coach, that he can sort of hit the ground running. And if things do go well, then fine. You have Doc Rivers in the building to give you some input and some insight.
Okay, Drew, since you haven't talked this whole podcast, I'm going to ask you a question. Well, here's the question. Why did people get sick of Mike Budenholzer for? Why did people not like Bud?
Well, it was the not making adjustments. That was basically the big Twitter thing, was he doesn't make adjustments. And Adrian Griffin was making adjustments. It was game to game.
No, don't bring up Adrian Griffin. So his deal was not making adjustments, losing in the playoffs when they shouldn't lose in the playoffs. That was his deal, right?
Yeah.
What's been Doc Rivers' track record in the NBA since he won the title in Boston?
Oh, he's been terrible in the playoffs. He's a great regular season coach, and he's been terrible in the playoffs.
Yeah, so there's your parachute, Ramie. You're going to pull it, and you're going to die when you hit the ground, because that dude ain't probably going to save you.
So I'm guessing you don't. And at the time of this recording, and in all this full disclosure and transparency, it's not finalized yet that Doc Rivers is the head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. Might be by the time this sees the light of day. But if that is the way that they go, Sparky, you're not thrilled with that hiring or that direction?
Oh, he's better. Look, I'm not saying he's not a better coach than Adrian Griffin. I'm not saying that they won't have a better team than they had with Adrian Griffin. What I am saying is this dude has a track record for being one of the biggest choke job NBA head coaches in the history of this league. And you brought him in to essentially, if we skip the Adrian Griffin era, to replace Bud, who also sucked in the playoffs outside of 1 year when things broke his way and won. Now, could Doc win despite being Doc? Because he's got Dame Lillard, because he's got Giannis. I mean, look, I've got examples of bad guys that I don't think were very good at their job that won a championship. Ned Yost won a damn championship. Anything is possible, I tell you. Anything is possible if Ned Yost can win a championship. Anything's possible. So maybe you can overcome Doc at the end of the day. He's definitely an upgrade over Adrian Griffin. Absolutely. Is he a guy that you can look at and go, oh, yeah, we'll win a couple rings with him and Giannis? I'm not there on that one.
Yeah, I'm not there on that. Sparky, I've said that I think that Doc Rivers is absolutely overrated as a coach. I've always kind of thought that. I probably wouldn't have said that the year that, he won with Boston, but I was like watching that Clippers team he had choke. And then the shit with Embiid and Harden, where it's like the process thing. And now they're like, well, maybe Harden was the problem on that team. Because look at how they're going now and look at what Embiid's doing. Embiid just might be super talented, and that's just all there is to it. And I don't know, Maxey, everyone was high on him. JJ Redick was high on Maxey to begin of the year. He's come back down to earth. He's not playing unreal like an elite point guard right now. So it's like, I don't know if Nick Nurse is really getting the best out of them or if that team is as good as they're going to be. I think the best thing that Rivers would have going for him, or any coach, is that Giannis and Dame don't have egos where neither of them are going to steal the ball from each other and want their stats. I see you looking like that now because we haven't hit that point, but
go to the Athletic article and look at the usage rates. I mean, the usage rate is 9 minutes difference between Giannis and Lillard, 32 to 25. Now, again, both have fallen back from where they were last year, right? Lillard fell way back from where he was in Portland, where it was his career high usage rate last year. And Giannis has fallen back where his usage rate was. And in that Athletic piece, it talks about how Lillard has been frustrated by exactly what the hell they're doing on offense. And that obviously is an issue. Go back to Nick Nurse for a second. Since you brought him up, let's talk about that, Jamoke. That dude was one of the 3 finalists for this job. It was him, Kenny Atkinson, and Adrian Griffin, right? Now, I think this Bucks front office interviewed a bunch of dudes and said, okay, we're comfortable with these 3. Now we'll bring Giannis in and let him figure out what he wants. This dude, according to reports, wanted anybody but Nick Nurse. And according to other reports back then was he wanted to play for a former NBA player. That's what he wanted to have as a head coach. Now, Doc Rivers fits that, right? So we don't got to worry about Doc Rivers not fitting that mold. So he goes with Adrian Griffin. Do you know who's responsible for this fiasco? It's not Giannis, because everybody wants to blame Giannis for picking Adrian Griffin. It's the ownership and the general manager for putting Adrian Griffin in a final 3 to begin with. If he was this bad that you fired him halfway through a season, then you screwed up by putting him in your final 3. Doc Rivers couldn't make your final 3, but you felt comfortable with Adrian Griffin being in your final 3. You're the idiots that screwed.
Oh no. I think your mic just came unplugged, Sparky. I'm not sure what happened there. I didn't hear the end of that sentence.
Yeah, we missed the end of that.
Are you still with us?
It's plugged in.
There you are. You're back.
Oh, you missed a good one too. It was really good.
Yeah,
I can't duplicate it. That was really good.
It
was really good. I don't know what to tell you. You missed it.
We
the
caught
Christmas
most of
trees
it.
in my basement. They heard it. They were laughing.
No, we caught most of it. We just missed the very end of it.
At the very least, the technical problems weren't our fault this time. So there is that. That's pretty good.
For the first time in the history of the Ramie and Drew
I'm in a bit. My point was that at the end of the day, the reason Griffin got that job is not Giannis's fault. It's the fault of the front Griffin into the final 3. He never belonged in the final 3, clearly, if you canned him halfway through the season. You made the mistake on evaluating Adrian Griffin. You're telling me those people thought that he was a better coach than Doc Rivers? He got into the final 3 over Doc damn Rivers? Get out of here.
Sparky,
you made that mistake as a front office. You could yell at Giannis for picking him over Nick Nurse. He don't like Nick Nurse, so screw Nick Nurse. The hell with him. Who cares? But you put him in the final 3. If Adrian Griffin is not in the final 3, Giannis is not saying, boy, I really want that assistant in Toronto. It's not happening. He's never would have even crossed Giannis's mind.
Don't you think Dame changed the equation? Because that's what I think happened in this whole thing. I think Griffin was hired for a different job than the one he ended up doing. I think you trade for a Dame Lillard and it ups the urgency and the expectations of everybody inside and outside that building. If this team is the 2 seed and 3 games out of the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference with the same roster essentially that they had last year, if they don't make the trade and they bring back Drew Holiday, I don't think they're firing Adrian Griffin. I don't think we're at a point where they fired Adrian Griffin because the expectations were more and the urgency is more when you make a trade for a Dame Lillard.
Hold on a second. Hold on. You're telling me with a straight face, by giving Adrian Griffin another top 75 player of all time, that made his job harder? That's what you're going to sell me on?
I think from the aspect of the expectations and the urgency that are put on him, yes, it did.
Well, I think it changed the learning curve.
Hold on again. Hold on again. Hold on again.
Okay, go
Drew, when they had Holiday, before they had Lillard, was your expectation championship or bust?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was, especially bringing back Middleton and Lopez also. Yeah, it was. The thing is, I think what the organization was willing to do was, because we had these guys all under contract for what would have been 2 more years with every one of them, the core 4, and possibly with Grayson being in the 5 or whatever, core 5, whatever we had with Bobby Portis for 2 more years. I think that they were banking on this team already did it together once, with the exception of Grayson being on the team, that they could gel and they could get on the same page all together. And then adding, and because Beasley was also brought in to be a bench player, basically, right? He wasn't brought in as a starter. So you were looking at, we made the bench a little bit better, more potent on offense with a more reliable 3-point shooter than Pat Connaughton. And then what ended up happening was we had to slot Beasley, who's an F defender. I give him an F- on defense. I compared him to the snake game on the Nokia phones, where he's always behind whoever he's supposed to be, trailing on defense. And it's just the defense got so much worse. And then you had 2 new players in your starting 5 that had to gel with everybody else. So I think the tolerance for the growth got a lot shorter with Adrian Griffin. And I mean, I agree with you that it was the right choice. And he never should have been in that position to begin with a team with championship aspirations.
Listen here. They were championship aspirations, like you said, regardless if Damian Lillard was here or not. It was championship or bust. Now, the thing that is weird to me, and I don't believe it, I believe in the Chris Haynes piece, he said the reason why the Bucks were comfortable with a rookie head coach was because they didn't think they were going to be as good as in years past, and they were okay with him kind of learning on the job. Now, again, that was before Lillard, right? That was before they brought Lillard in, when they made the hire. But I don't understand how you look at that roster and say, we're not going to be as good as we were last year, or we're not going to be as good as we were 2 years ago. It's virtually the same damn roster for the most part as it was previously that you gave Bud, who you fired because you didn't think he got enough out of the same damn roster, that now you say, well, maybe it's not that good. That will let Adrian Griffin go be the head coach. It's excuses. It's crap. Don't believe any of it. They screwed up that hire, and now they're going to try and make excuses for it.
Sparky, if they don't make the Dame trade, and we're talking about, and let's say Giannis is playing at an MVP level, and the defense is good because you have one of the best on-ball defenders that's ever stepped on a court in Drew Holiday, and you have Giannis and you have Brook, and they're 3 games out of the lead in the Eastern Conference. Are they firing Adrian Griffin in this alternate timeline where they never make the Dame trade? They have the same record, but they get there in a different way. Like, the defense is better, and they have this pretty much the same roster that they had last year. Are we sitting here doing this show today talking about Adrian Griffin being fired?
So you think one player changes this defense?
Yes. And that's not even my main point. No, I'm just talking about the expectations and the urgency that come with trading for a Dame Lillard.
Well, that's fine. And you're right. I'm not going to disagree with you. This scheme is not meant for this personnel group. That scheme was run in Toronto when Ned did not have a true big man. Think about what they had at center. They never had a true big like Brook Lopez, who's a dominant shot blocker type deal. This dude came in here with the idea that they weren't going to play drop zone. Now, he changed his mind and played it a little bit more with Brook after they all went to him and said, dude, you're an idiot. Like, we got to do it this way in order for this to work. But still, how many times with Bud did you see Brook Lopez out in the wing guarding a guard and having the guy blow by him to go to the rim, or pulling him outside because he got switched onto him, and then we have nobody underneath to rebound the damn basketball? This team won rebounding battles almost every night in the NBA. Yep. And now look at what you see most nights. Everybody's getting pulled away because they're switching and running the Bucks ragged. And I said the beginning of the year, Thibodeau, Scott Skiles, Nick Nurse, all guys he coached under, are all guys that ran their guys ragged, and their guys were burnt out or just absolutely done by the time they got through the playoffs. That's always what happened. And that defensive scheme was about to lead him right back into that hellhole that these other teams have went through already. He did not adjust that scheme, in my opinion, and Mutombo, his assistant, nearly enough for the personnel he had. He came in and said, we're running what we ran in Toronto. It works, and this is what we're going to do. And that is a horrible way to do business. The best way to do business is you run the best scheme that makes sense with your talent that you're given. Plain and simple. He didn't do that, and now he's out of a job.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. He definitely made some mistakes. I think he's given a little more leeway to make those mistakes, if not for the trade. So if you're not crazy about Doc Rivers, Sparky, who did you want to see them make a call to replace Adrian Griffin if this move was going to be made?
Terry Stotts.
That was my first answer.
Terry Stotts was there. It was going to be. Yeah, it was going to be Terry Stotts' offense. You were installing his offense. He knows what he's got. He definitely knows how to coach Dame Lillard. I don't got to worry about that crap. Let him go in there. Let him coach it. He knows all the assistant coaches. So there was, some chemistry, maybe not completely, but there was some chemistry. Let him come in and coach this team. Let him go be the guy and see what happens. Terry Stotts has never had this much talent on one basketball team in his career as a head coach. Let's see what he can do with it. Let's see what happens. He got that Portland team to Western Conference Finals with less talent than this, I promise you. And that was a much tougher conference back in the day when he did it in Portland. So I know Terry Stotts was here once before and he sucked. And I know Jeff Rieger, boycott this team, all that stuff, 911 Rieger and all that you remember that famous night, Ramie, all of that stuff that happened when Terry Stotts was here the last time. I get it. I remember, but different circumstances. He's better. This team is way better than the last time he was here. Give him a shot. Let him do it. He's not even being mentioned in that athletic piece. They're talking about it's Doc and then Kenny Atkinson. If by some weird thing, Doc doesn't take the job, but even in that piece, it sounds like it's almost 99% done that Doc Rivers is the head coach. My guess is this thing gets announced probably on what day is this? What day is this going to be out, Ramie?
Wednesday.
So my guess is at some point when you're listening to this podcast, earlier today, later today, whatever, on Wednesday is probably when he gets hired. Prunty coaches the game Wednesday night. Doc takes over, has a press conference on Thursday, and runs his first practice on Thursday. That's how I think this plays out. I think it happens that quickly.
Do you, Sparky, do you think that there's any call to Terry Stotts also just to be like, do you want to be the assistant?
Where did you just go?
No, absolutely not. They're going to tell Doc Rivers. I would have. Well, my computer was about to die.
Oh,
so okay. I texted Kay to bring down my power book, my computer. Otherwise, I would have just disappeared like Adrian Griffin, and you wouldn't have had me anymore. This is the thing. You have to look at it from this perspective. If you're Doc Rivers, you want somebody that you know and trust on your staff, right? So I think what's going to happen, no inside knowledge, Mutombo, the defensive coach, he's getting canned next. Then Doc is going to come in, bring whoever his right-hand guy is going to be, whoever may be out there, and sit on that. Now, next year, he'll redo the entire bench. But for now, for the rest of this year, he'll keep Prunty, keep these other guys, Vin Baker and those guys, but he's going to bring one of his own guys in. He's got to have somebody he trusts. Then when you get into that room, you go to Joe Prunty, the gray hair, the blue hair, the guy that's been around forever. All right, Joe, what the hell are we doing? Like, what was he trying to get accomplished on this side? Now, again, he's had conversations with Griffin, so he's got a good idea. He's been consulting him, quote unquote, this entire time. So now he gets to come in and do it his way. Every assistant on that staff knows how good Doc is. Nobody's going to question whether or not this was a better hire than Adrian Griffin. They all know his track record. They know how good he is. There's not going to be a respect issue like there might have been between Stotts and Adrian Griffin. That's not going to be a thing. And when he walks in, Giannis has to shut up. Dame has to shut up. Middleton, Brooke, that's it. This is his team. We do as he says, and we go. This is no longer let's help coach like they were doing with Adrian Griffin.
But you don't necessarily. I feel like you don't necessarily think it works if Doc Rivers ends up indeed being the guy.
Oh, I think they're much better in the regular season. Like I said, I just think they choke in the playoffs like Doc's teams always do. And then we're all going to lose our minds. And Doc is not leaving a TV booth where they gave him a huge amount of money to go do TV, to come to Milwaukee for the same or less money and do a rest of the year or 1 year deal. Like if they're getting Doc, it's going to be 5 years, 4 years. It's going to be a long-term deal. He's not coming for pennies on the dollar. That's not happening. And I know he's got the local ties and all of that, But hey, Jimmy Haslam, you all kinds of money. I want some of it if you want me to come help your team out of this hole that you built. See that? And that's the other thing. This is Jimmy Haslam's fault too. Look how badly he screwed up that whole thing over there. I never wanted him as part owner of this team, and now he is part owner of this team. And the first thing he's involved in, they screw up by hiring Adrian Griffin. Yeah, Jimmy Haslam, blame him. That we'll put all the blame on Jimmy Haslam.
I think really, Sparky, the blame might go to before Jimmy Haslam was even an owner, and that's when they fired Bud. I mean, and I said yesterday on the show that if somehow the Dame trade happens before they fire Budenholzer, they probably don't fire Budenholzer. That would have been the shakeup. They would have said, all right, we brought in Dame. That's the big shakeup. They wouldn't need to fire the head coach. We would still coach Bud. And Sparky, I said yesterday, and two things I can't believe Drew actually kind of agreed with me on and was receptive to on yesterday's show. Yes, we said one, it was Terry Stotts. The other one, I said, I might pick up the phone and ask Bud if he wants to come back after firing Adrian Griffin. Call that crazy if you want.
When they let Bud go, Eric Name, I believe it was Eric Name, had a piece in The Athletic saying that they were ready to let Bud go that year they won the title. And they were in that battle or whatever the case may be. And TNT, remember the guys in TNT were drilling Bud? Eric said they were ready to move on from him after that. And when they got eliminated, that was going to be at Toodles. We're hiring somebody else. You're a moron. Well, guess what? They overcame Bud. Like you're going to have to overcome Doc. They overcame Bud, saved his job. Well, now you can't fire him. He just won your title. Now you're stuck with them. So then you move forward a couple of years. You get far enough away from the title. And then they're like, okay, that's enough. We gave him his flowers. We won a title. Thank you. But I think the locker room had enough of Bud, and they definitely had enough of Bud, I think, at that point. And it was just time to part ways. I don't think there was bitter feelings or anything like that. I will say, when they fired Bud, I didn't disagree with them firing Bud, but that specific series that they lost, the dude's brother died in the middle of the series. He didn't miss a freaking game. And which still showed up and coach, obviously had stuff on his mind. If my brother died, I'm not coming back for the rest of the playoffs. I'm out. Like, this is going to take me some time to get my mind clear. And that dude coached through the whole damn thing, and then you canned him. Again, I don't have a problem canning him, but just the look of it to me wasn't the best.
Spark, you mentioned playoff choke jobs a second ago. That's a perfect transition into the Green Bay Packers and what happened against the San Francisco 49ers on Saturday night. What was your takeaway from that game?
You wouldn't know anything about it because your team doesn't even make the playoffs with the Bears. So you wouldn't know anything about being a playoff choke job in Chicago.
Fair calling it a choke, Ramie, and you know that.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Let him call it whatever he wants. This is what I've learned. This year, more than any other year, man, these other fan bases in this division really hate the Packers. I mean,
hang on one sec. Keep talking.
I'll be right back. Ramie had issues. You didn't have to tell us. You could have just left. So this is the thing. I get that the Bears fans never liked him. I get that the Vikings fans never liked the Packers, right? I get all that. Why? Well, you're jealous, right? You're jealous as a Bear fan or a Viking fan because of Favre. Then you get Aaron Rodgers.
Yes.
Then you finally think that it's over.
Yeah.
And what do you all do, you fans? You all run to social media and run your mouth all over social media. Ha, 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 ha. It's all over.
Yeah, I didn't.
And then what happened? Well, huh?
I knew. And I was telling people for years, don't be surprised if Jordan Love is better than Justin Fields. I've been telling people that since the day both those dudes
I'm just saying in general.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I'm just saying in general. Packer or Bears fans, Vikings fans, Detroit fans we don't really hear about from that much because most of us don't know many. But my point is when you talk about the Packers and the Bears and the Vikings and that stuff, when they saw Jordan Love do what Jordan Love did for the last 8-9 games of his first year as a starter, they went, whoops, this is not good. Not good at all. Do you know what makes me feel really good about it? I listen to 670 The Score, our sister station at 1250, station that Ramie Makloff fills in on from time to time. and they are running a promo on their radio station of their hosts talking about how the Bears need a Jordan Love in Chicago. They need to do it like how he's doing it in Green Bay, a guy that makes up his mind and boom, accuracy, boom, hits where he got to hit it. I've never in my life, I've listened to the score since it was on 860 or 1160 or 820, whatever the hell it was back in the day. So since I was in like high school, I've listened to the score. I've never heard them run a pro Packer promo saying that's what the Bears need to do in my entire life. I smile
That is
ear to ear every time I hear that promo because yes, it is. But for all, and again, those hosts down in Chicago on the score were running their mouth too in the middle of the year. Ha 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 ha. Okay, fair enough. Ha 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 ha. You don't still know who your quarterback is for next season. Have no idea. Vikings fans, they're celebrating. Oh, the Packers lost. Oh, the Packers lost. Paul Allen, that troll, that play-by-play guy in Minnesota, he's like, oh, they got the fourth best quarterback in the division. Dude, you don't even have a quarterback for 2024 in Minnesota to even make that statement about what Minnesota's going to be. But again, he's trolling because he's jealous like he's been most of his career in Minnesota. So now we talk about this Packer team getting to where they got. Look, man, nobody thought they were going to the playoffs this year. Nobody. I said 7-9 wins at the beginning of the year. Okay, they got to 9. They get to the playoffs. They're supposed to get hammered in Dallas. They outcoach McCarthy. They outplay McCarthy's team. They win. Now it's San Francisco. I'll be honest, at the beginning of the week, I did not care. By the end of the week, I was so pissed off listening to people disrespect Green Bay and act like the Niners hadn't lost a damn game all year. I was hot by the time that game started. I was pissed off. Like, just keep it close. That's all I wanted. I'm like, I don't care if you lose. Just keep it close. Just don't get blown out and give everybody the pat on the back of, see, we told you how great the Niners were. Guess what? They took it to them and they outplayed them for damn near 3.5 quarters. And the young team at the end fell apart and lost. Fine, it happens. But going forward, this offense is going to be a top 3 offense in the National Football League next year. I guarantee it at this point. And if they fire Joe Barry as defensive coordinator and bring in somebody decent, this defense might actually not be half bad either. And you're going to be talking about this Packers team competing for a Super Bowl in year 2 of Jordan Love as a starter.
Yeah, you're right.
Do the Packers bring in Adrian Griffin as a defensive-minded coach?
Well played.
That's the move
right there.
And Sparky, you're
Beautiful.
right. You're right about everything you said about the division and the Packers. And I hate to admit it, you are right. But this is how much it means to me when the Bears do get the rare victory over the Packers. This right here, I hung up some pictures in my office today, and this right here is something I've had for a long time, which is a framed picture somebody gave me of Jay Cutler eating the turkey leg when they beat the Packers on Thanksgiving. And I think that's going to go up right around there. That was a Thanksgiving. That's a regular season Thanksgiving game. That's how rare the victory for us is. So yeah, when they do lose in the playoffs, I think it was Big Cat from Barstool said, that's our version of winning the Super Bowl. And we get to experience that every year. We get to experience that joy I watched the look on Drew Flaggy's face as Jordan Love just winged that thing into coverage and cost him the football game. And it was, I can't lie. Like that's all I got, bro. That's all that I have is to watch you guys get sad once a year.
But like, I wasn't even that sad.
Hey, Drew,
I was more,
Drew,
more Jello shots.
He did have more jello.
Alcohol will solve. Well, alcohol will solve a lot of things. Do you know what will really finish us off for you, Ramie? So you don't get as bent out of shape and angry every time the Bears lose to the Packers and so forth. Have some kids running around. You'll be so distracted by your children that game won't mean nearly as much. 2-3 kids, Ramie, and you're all set. That's no. Uncle Ramie should have 2 or 3 kids. Yes. And then you let us help them pick what teams to root for, because you will ruin the rest of their lives if you pick.
Probably true. That is probably true. sometimes I am like, why did my dad do this to me? You know what I mean? When it comes to the Bears or the Bulls, for a long time, the Cubs. Yeah, I'd be like, why did he do this?
You can be the change you want to see in the world. Don't kids.
That's fair. That's a great message to end the show on. That's Drew Flaggy, my co-host, Steve Sparky Fifer. Catch him on Curd and Long and the Green and Growing podcast. That's a Packers and a Bucks podcast, in case you couldn't figure it out. Available on your Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. And Sparky, I really, really appreciate it, dude. Let's talk again soon.
Figured it'll be next year when they fire the next head coach. But yeah, we'll talk to you next time.
See you, dude. There's Steve Sparky Fifer. And Drew, you barely talked that episode, which I honestly, I'd be lying if I said I didn't see that coming. Like when Sparky and I get on a roll, it's just it's a thing. It's a thing, and there's a lot of history there.
Yeah, I was it felt like I was back in my car, stuck in traffic, coming home.
That's episode 5 of Ramie and Drew. We'll be back with episode 6 on Thursday, and who knows who will be fired by then. I'll talk to you then, Drew.
Probably me.
See you, dude.